All right, so now we're gonna start to work actually finishing the pass, and we're gonna start with the hip and knee post. To me, this is one of the main passing configurations with your hands that you want to be going to, and this usually comes after we initially cut our angle. Generally speaking, if I'm looking to pass my partner, I will not go to the hip and knee post when I'm in front of him. The reason being is if I go knee and hip post right here, it becomes very easy, one, for him to place a foot on the hip because I'm not really controlling the ankle, and two, from this angle, he can pummel his left leg inside my shoulder to a lasso, whether he goes to a lasso or just comes inside the shoulder very, very easily. And now it's just easy for him to square his hips up with me and hard to create my ankle. So when we're passing the guard, we think about initially controlling the lower leg, like his shin ankle area, then controlling his knees, and then transitioning up to controlling his hips, and then getting chest to chest. So it's like a little bit of a systematic process. Even though we're passing to the outside, and we're using a little bit of a movement, we still need to climb the body in the same way. So however I get to the outside, in this case, I'll just control the shins, and we create this angle right here. And now we're gonna go into our hip and knee post. So I'm gonna go from the two hands on the shins to one hand controlling his knee. My main goal with a hand on the knee is I'm gonna prevent this leg from getting inside right here. So his guard recovery should come from this far leg. So if we played a game, if I just control this near knee and drop my head right here, if Diego tried to get his right foot on the hip, he should not be able to. Look how I'm C-gripping his leg, and I'm pointing my elbow out in this direction, and sometimes I'll just reinforce my elbow against my own leg. So when he goes to bring this leg inside, it's impossible unless he uses this leg. So he has to high leg this over, place this foot somewhere on my body, and then he can bring his second leg inside, and that's usually how the recovery is going to go. So when I come around, that hand on the knee is really important, that I'm blocking this near leg. My second hand is going to go on the far hip. So when I do this, it's not just like a post on the hip. I'm wrapping my fingers around my partner's ribs, and I'm opening my elbow up, and that's going to help limit his ability to high leg with his second leg. So I'm wrapping my fingers, I'm opening the elbow up, just like this, and I like to focus on putting his far hip on the mat. So if I get to a situation where Diego is on his near hip, his right hip, it's much easier for him to make space and then pummel that leg over. And there's gonna always be times where I can't put the far hip on the mat, but my goal is to pin that far hip. So I'm going to the near leg. My legs are kind of square right here. I'm not too close to him. I'm not too far away. I'm kind of, maybe a foot from my partner. And I use my forearm and I start to flatten this hip right here. So when Diego goes to recover that guard, he goes to throw that leg over, it's difficult for him. And then my head, I want it anywhere from around his shoulder to over his hip right here. It can go in a number of places. But basically I want my head over this far side of his body. My head is over the near side of the body. He can get on his near hip and start to recover his guard like this. So I'm flattening that far hip. My head is shooting over that far side of his body. And I'm looking to open space between his elbow and his knee. So via this hand, I'm going to just angle my hips a little bit so I can open that space up and then drop my hip. And I've created space, and now I can move into side control right here. Truthfully, a lot of times when we do this pass, we're not going to straight up pass the person's guard with this. Remember what we talked about at the beginning. We want to create these angles and get to these positions as much as possible. So if I can get here 10, 11, 12 times in a row, each time Diego's energy bar is going to slowly tick down because he has to push, he has to bring his knees to his chest, he has to high leg over. And each time I do that, I'm going to get closer and closer to passing, and eventually, a lot of times we'll get the breakthrough and finally secure the pass. So I think a lot of people, when they start doing this, they might struggle like actually passing the guard, like with their first, second, third attempt. But each time you get here, even if we don't successfully pass, we just want to make it as difficult as possible for him to recover his guard. So doing the things we mentioned, I cut my angle, I'm controlling this near knee. Elbow out, I can reinforce it against my own leg. Forehand, I wrap my fingers around the hip and I flare my forearm, and my head is going over that far side of his body. I'm focusing on pinning, in this case, his left hip. So when he goes to recover his guard, he needs to push, push, push until I can turn my hips towards his legs and drop my hips and pass. If he does manage to recover, that's no problem at all. Maybe he does finally get those legs in, use a lot of energy. Boom, I'm cutting my angles. I'm doing the same thing again, which we're going to get into, but I want to make it as hard and as energy inefficient for him as possible to recover his guard when we're in that position. So we just went over kind of our basic hip and knee post positioning, what we're trying to do. So we're going to always be dealing with that outside high leg. That's one of the most common reactions we're going to get from our partner. So we're going to go over like a hipping in variation that's going to help clear that high leg. So the main concept we kind of talked through, not the main concept, one of the concepts we talked about with the hip and knee post was pinning his far hip to the ground, just like this. So if I can get that far hip to the mat, this high leg is going to be a lot harder. So when we come around, we create our angle. I start to go to my hip and knee post, but I feel like that second leg is going to come in. So as this is happening right here, I'm going to pull my hand of the hip out, and then I have his knee, and my elbow is connected to my hips, and I'm just going to throw my hips in with the intent of turning his hips the opposite direction. So we come around, I feel him starting to come in, I throw my hips in via this. Now my hand comes underneath my other hand, like this. So now when he goes to turn into me, I'm using my forearm and my hips to drop into his hips, so I'm turning his knees away from me, and now we're in a good position to pass. I just walk my hips into his hips, so when he goes to turn in, it's difficult, then we can move into side control and climb the bodies. So basically when we have this angle, the hand on the hip, I'm throwing my hips in, which is attached to my arm, which is going to move his leg. I just take this hand out of here. If I leave my hand in, it's going to kind of mess it up. So my hand is here, I throw my hips in, hand comes underneath, switch my hips, and we move into the pass. So we'll do it one more time. Diego, just give me a little more tension. So I come around to the side, to create my angle, then I drop my hips in, so I have my forearm blocking the knee right here. So when he goes to recover his guard, I can shoot that arm all the way across, and then climb on my partner's body. So sticking with that concept of turning his hips away from us, I'm just doing that with my hips, rotating the hips away, and we move into our guard pass. All right, so this next variation, this is dealing with our partner's high leg. This is probably my preferred option to go to. It does, I think it requires a little bit more timing because we kind of have to catch our partner's leg as it's coming in. But we are going to be doing a similar hipping in motion, but instead of attaching our hand to the knee, that hand is going to come off the knee and look to intercept the leg coming in. So what's nice about the first one is you don't have to really switch your grips. You kind of just do it. You take the hand off the hip. Here's a little bit more of a grip transfer, so it needs a little bit more coordination hit. But same thing, we cut this angle. Now we talk about this near knee. If I have the hand on the knee and I'm in good position, he shouldn't be able to recover this leg. So as he goes the high leg over, I can relinquish the grip on the knee and then just intercept his ankle with a C grip with my thumb down. So we're in this position. He starts to high leg over. My hips come in. And I grab the ankle like this. So I still have the hand on the hip. My hips are coming in, and I'm catching the ankle with my left hand. So he's starting to high leg over. Hips come in. You got to high leg over. Hips come in. I grab the ankle with this hand right here. See, I'm throwing my hips in. Once we're here, I'm turning his hips in this direction. This way. I'm turning his hips in this direction. My hand that's on the far hip is going to come to the near hip. I'm just going to shoot that elbow through, and I switch and pass north-south. So in this case, it's a little hard to actually go to side control. And as we progress in the DVD, we're going to see a lot of the times we are going to go north-south. We're not going to talk about that quite yet. But in this case, we are going north-south. But again, I cut my angle here. Hips come in. To check the hip, we run north-south. I have the angle controlled. My hand tumbles inside. I bury my head. And we move into our north-south pass. This is a really effective way of intercepting the leg. I'm just taking the hand off the knee, catching the ankle, and then throwing my hips in. So here, hips come in. I grab the ankle, shuffle the hand down, and we move into our north-south passing. So this is another option, probably my preferred option, when my partner starts to high leg over. All right, so sometimes there's going to kind of be two variations with this one, but this is like a one-armed leg drag or a C-grip leg drag where we switch sides. So we have a very early variation where before I'm even really able to cut my angle, my partner's already squaring his hips up with me, which is pretty common if the guy has a good guard. And this just allows us to immediately switch to the other side. Then we have a slightly later variation where I get to my hip and knee post, I actually create the angle, and he manages to get that like foot in front of my body, like throws the lasso in or throws the foot in front of the shoulder. And you know, we kind of can't do the other options where we hip in and then switch. So I'm going to show you guys two variations. And both of these are really nice because it brings us to the other side, which I feel is a key component with outside passing, is being able to switch directions. And then we can just get into the same exact passing sequences on the other side. So this can be done, you know, whether his legs are extended or knees to chest. Usually it's going to be when knees to chest, because when his knees are to his chest, it's easier for him to align his hips with me. But a lot of times I get my C grips, and as I start to come around, Diego is just going to square his hips up with me preemptively. Like I won't be able to even cut an angle. So as I come around, he kind of just aligns his hips with me, and I can't actually get outside the feet. And this takes a little sensitivity, and you can kind of bait this as you get good at it. But I'm going to start to go one way. Then my hand that's on the shin is going to slide down to his ankle. I'm going to basically just, as he aligns his hips with me, direct him in the opposite direction. I'm going to end up in kind of a leg drag on the other side. So I start to come around, and I just turn his hips with me. So I'm kind of loading him up to one side, and then the hand slides from the shin to the ankle. I can also just start on the ankle if I know I'm going to do this. There's quite a few variations where we do this from like a knee cut as well, but I can just start on the ankle. I start to come around, and I turn his hips just like this. Now we're basically in a hip and knee post on the other side. Usually I'll go down to the hip, same idea, wrapping my fingers around the ribs, opening that up, flattening the hip out, and then we move into our guard pass.
Yeah.
Sometimes
Just go this way. Like,
Sometimes if we really cut a good angle, we end up in like a true leg drag, and we can actually leg drag our partner. So we start to come around. Sometimes I'll be able to staple this leg and actually settle into a leg drag, which is excellent, just depending on his reaction, honestly. Or depending how much I beat him. Sometimes his hips will really come up very high, and it's very easy for me to start to staple that leg and move into a leg drag. But other times, you know, I might not turn him so much. We come around, and we end up more in a hip and knee post, and then we pass to the other side. So either one is good, but I'm just kind of starting the same sequence on the other side of his body. I just start going one way, get to the other side, and then we're passing the same exact way. This can also be done from our hip and knee post. So we come around, I get to my hip and knee post, and he manages to get that lasso inside. When this happens, it's hard for me to continue passing in that direction. So I'm going to do two things. My hand that's on the knee, I'm going to go thumb inside his knee and focus on pinning this hip down. If this hip can stay pinned, it's going to be much easier for me to get to the other side. So he throws that lasso in, I pin the hip, I pull my hand out, and I come to the ankle. Now I just do a shuffle. I keep my hands where they are, and I want his hips to stay in this orientation, and I just shuffle to the other side like this. So now his hips are turned this way. I can move into just a regular leg drag, or more often than not, he starts to turn into me. I'm in my hip and knee post, but I already have his hips turned the direction I want. I want him turned away from me, and we can move into our guard pass. So we have our early variation where we switch sides. If we end up a little bit deeper in this position, and he manages to get the lasso in, no problem, we just switch. So I'm pulling my hand on the hip out, I'm pushing the knee down, I'm just shuffling to the other side, and we move into our passing on the other side. So this movement definitely takes some practice. Obviously we can do this both directions. Like just a good drill to do is you come to one side, partner pummels the leg inside, I switch sides, he pummels the leg inside, we switch sides. So we're going side to side with this movement. I'm basically just directing his leg and moving my body to the other side, and we move into our guard passing. If he reacts a little bit earlier, I start to come around, he starts to square his hips up, then we can do that movement before we even really get into the guard pass. All right, so now we're going to move into using what's called a cross scoop to pass. So this particular reaction on his part is usually done when I get pretty deep on the guard pass. Normally when he high legs over, he wants to high leg and put his foot on my chest, on my shoulder, on my bicep. he doesn't want to have to throw it over my head, which we're going to go over right now. He's usually doing this when I get deeper on the pass and I'm putting good pressure on my partner and I'm forcing an overreaction on his part, and that's something we can take advantage of. So basically, normally when we get to the outside, he wants to pummel his foot inside my chest or my shoulder or something like that, and now he's in a good position to recover his guard. But if I get a little bit deeper on the pass, he has to make space and he has to throw that leg over my head, just like this. When he does this, I can't continue passing in this direction, but it gives me a chance to go to my cross scoop. So I basically take my hand that was on the knee, and I reach inside his hip, low by his hip. My hand that was on his hip goes to the ankle, just like this. And notice how I stay in my feet right here. So ideally, I'm pinning this near leg down, and I have this cross scoop position right here to rotate. So I have this and this. Now, when I go to do this, our first option is just going north-south right here. We have ways we can switch sides. We have ways we can set up back takes, leg drags. There's a bunch of really good options in this position. We're just going to continue going north-south. So when I cut my ankle, he throws the leg over, I catch. Now, a lot of times this leg is starting to kind of come in my armpit. I want to widen my elbow. So I take my hand up to his armpit, and I open my elbow up, and I roll my head inside as I circle towards his hip, towards his head. So I widen that elbow, I roll my head inside. Now we move into north-south. My hand comes from the ankle to the hip. I shoot my head forward, drop my shoulder to his belly button, and we pass north-south. We're going to get more into actually securing the north-south position a little bit later, but this is a great option for going north-south over here. So hip and knee pose, I catch, I circle around, I continuously circle towards the head. I open that elbow up, I roll my head, and then we move in a north-south right here. This will facilitate very well also when my partner's trying to attack my legs. Commonly, we'll see situations where I start to come around and he'll commit 2 hands to my leg right here with a scoop like this. And he'll lock his hands and he'll try to throw his legs up to like a K-guard type position and attack my legs. So if I'm pretty low, when he goes to start to do this right here, it's pretty easy for me to get this cross scoop and just continue with my guard pass and take advantage of him taking his frames away and try to entangle my legs. So again, we're forcing him to do this by getting pretty deep on the guard pass or just throw the leg over. He starts to recover, we catch the leg, open up my elbow, and we move into a north-south position. All right, now we're gonna get into switching sides and some other options with this cross scoop. So one thing that's really nice about using the cross scoop is it offers me the ability to pass in both directions. So anytime we have grips that allow us passes to both sides, it's a big advantage for us on top. So we initially went north-south. Now we're just gonna kind of knee slice through or pummel through and then switch to the other side. So you see this taught a lot. You see people using this as like a speed drill almost, where they go side to side with this, but this is really an excellent pass. So we come around, he throws the leg over. I'm going to try to go north-south, but I feel like for whatever reason that's not going to work. Maybe he's just pushing on my hips. A lot of guys will just double up on the hip if you can't continue to go that way. So initially, I always like to go in that direction, kind of load his hips up to this side. So whenever I get here, I'm always kind of running towards the head, and then I gauge his reaction to decide what to do. So in this case, I'm pinning this bottom leg down, and I'm going to slide my knee all the way through, just like this. As I do this, I pull my left elbow to my ribs, and I come around the corner, and I'm in a good position to pass his guard right here. So I'm making sure to pull this across my chest, and now I'm going to look to hunt for this far shoulder. Most of the time, my partner's going to be turning into me right here. So as he's doing that, I keep my head low, and usually we switch going north-south, checking the near hip, putting the far arm over the shoulder. So again, we kind of have 2 ways we can do this. We can do a knee slice like I did. We can also do a pummel. Just put your head this way. So you come around. So I just did a knee slice like this. I can also step my right leg up, drop it inside my elbow, and then windshield wiper both legs at the same time. This is another option as well. Puts me in the exact same position. Pulling this arm across the chest. As he goes to recover his guard right here, I keep my head low. I circle, hunt for the shoulders, and we pass the guard right here. This is a really, really effective pass. shoes used a lot at a high level. So we come around, trying to cut my angle. I start to go north-south first. I feel like it's not working. I either knee slice through or windshield wiper through, pulling the leg across the chest, circling, and moving north-south. And there are quite a few reactions he can give us here where he inverts over the shoulder, and we move in the back takes. There's a lot of good stuff here. This is kind of the basic option, switching sides, and then we can gauge our reactions once we get there. All right, so this is another variation of how we can kind of switch sides from this cross scoop. This is probably my favorite option here. This kind of puts us into more of a pressure style of passing. Like we're using the outside passing to switch to pressure passing, which is something we're going to talk about a little later on. Not to get off on a tangent, but generally speaking, like we can combine outside passing with pressure passing. That's usually, I think, one of the more effective ways to do it. Like you need to use both. You can't only pass to the outside. You can't only pressure pass. We got to kind of combine them together. So this is a really nice variation of doing that. So I'm just going to switch sides because I have an issue with my knee doing this move. But so we get to our hip and knee pose. He throws the leg over. I go to my cross scoop. So a lot of times I'm starting to try to move north-south, and he'll start to bring this bottom knee very kind of high up in my hip. This is kind of probably the right way he should be recovering here. Now, if I can staple this leg, it's pretty easy for me. But if he kind of brings that knee kind of high up on my hip, I kind of end up with the shin across my belly, and it can be hard to step over the leg. So we're just going to do a pummel right here. So when I do this, I want to load him up to my right. So I'm going to kind of threaten to north-south like I was before. I push the leg, and I pummel my right shin into position. So we end up in kind of a leg drag with this cross scoop position. This is an excellent spot to end up in. I have the cross scoop. I have my right shoelaces behind his like calf knee area, and I'm just in a great spot. All I'm going to do once I get here is I'm going to grab his lower back with my left hand. Okay, again, I grab his lower back and I shelf his hips up like this. So see how my left knee is supporting his hips? Once I do this, I can let go of the cross scoop. My right hand is going to reach all the way through to his bottom hip, and I glue my ear to his shoulder. So now when he goes to turn into me, I have my leg stapling him, and I have my ear on the back of the shoulder, and I can start to move around the side control pretty easily. A lot of times I start to get to his knees. Right here, we start to move into our back takes, starting to take our partners back. So again, a different angle. Up here at this way. So we start to pass to the outside. He high legs over. I get this cross scoop. If I can bend the leg to the mat, we can usually slide through, right? But a lot of times I'll keep that knee high where I feel like I can't step over, so I push and I pummel my leg. Once we get here, I grab that hip. I stack his hips up. So if he goes to put his lower back on the mat right now, it's difficult because of the way I'm stacking his hips with my knee. I reach this arm all the way through, and I glue my ear to his shoulder. We move around the side shoulder. If he doesn't turtle and tries to turn into me, it's pretty easy for me to secure my guard pass. So this kind of knee staple, like leg drag type position is a really effective way we can pass, and there's a few ways we're going to get here in this instructional. So here, he throws the leg over, I circle, pummel my leg inside, stack the hips up, reach this through, and we move into our guard pass or back take right here. So we'll go over a few other ways we can use this position as well. So we're going to do the same option. We're going to do that like a knee staple position. But as opposed to going to leg drag on the far side, we're going to move into a back step. This is one of my favorite options, especially if someone who's got a flexible kind of limber guard. It can be hard to actually set up that leg drag. So we come around, I hit my pummel position, and I end up right here. So I kind of have his hips stacked up, but I feel like I can't actually set up this leg drag position. So all I'm going to do is my cross group hand is going to grab either his shoulder or his head. I just have to be careful of triangles here, guys, right? So like if my knee was not stapling his leg down and I went to do this, obviously there's a triangle. So the only reason I'm doing this is because I have that knee stapled. If you try to free that leg in any way, it's just not going to be able to. And the reason I'm grabbing the shoulder is I want to be high up on his body once I complete the pass. If I kept it cross scoop and do this, I could, but I end up kind of low on his hips, so a little easier for him to recover. So I grab either the shoulder or the collar tie. I'm going to stick my left hand inside his hip, and I backstep, just like this right here. End up between his legs. Now we're in north-south. I drive my head forward so my shoulder covers his hips. Now we're in a good passing position right here.
Bottom.
So again, we get outside our partner's feet. I'm putting pressure. He throws that leg over. I go to cross scoop. He's pulling his knees to his chest. I pump. Pick the hips up right here. For whatever reason, I feel like I'm not going to be able to set up the leg drag. So I go down to the shoulder. I just pummel both legs out at the same time. Now we're in a north-south position. Once we're here, I'm high on the shoulder line. Generally speaking, this makes it very hard for him to like sit up or knee elbow escape, but he might start to bring his knees in. So I just scoot my shoulder towards his belly button and get up on one knee and step the other leg up. So now when he goes to recover his guard, he's very stuck right here. I can keep his hips pinned so he's past the guard. The alternative of my gripping could be
South.
right here, could be keeping my right hand on the hip. So I could shoot this arm through and then backstep right here. Sometimes guys will sit up and start to push my elbow, so he'll sit up on his right side, start to push my elbow and recover. You know, not saying you can't pass that way. Personally, I don't prefer it, but I like to go a little higher by the shoulders, but truthfully, either one is going to work. So we have the option where I went close to the shoulder, or if I stack his hips up, I can go close to the hips, back step, and now I'm a little bit closer to securing my head down at the hips. So cross scoop, knee pin right into our back step. So we talked a little bit, we did a few sequences from the cross scoop pass where we put good pressure on our partner. They have to throw that leg over the head, and then we switch. There's a grip sequence I like. We talked about it a little bit during the first part of the instructional, where I use inverted V grips. And this particular gripping sequence kind of forces my partner to high leg over in a way that allows me to go to my cross scoop. So initially, we're mostly going over these shin grips or C grips on the ankle. So I'm going to go down C grip and like this inverted V grip like this. So it's a little hard to set this up standing right in front of my partner. I got to kind of have a little bit of an angle. So usually I'll kind of like walk to the side a little bit and then switch. So thumb down with this hand, thumb up with my right hand, just like this. So especially this thumb down grip, it makes it so hard for him to bring this leg back inside. If he goes to recover that leg, just because of the way I'm grabbing it, it's really, really difficult for him. It's not quite as good for getting to our hip and knee post position. I can't climb the bodies effectively, but it's going to force a kind of a high leg. That's going to allow me to go to the cross scoop. So I go thumb down and then thumb up like this. If he tries to pummel his left leg inside for like a traditional high leg, it's nearly impossible right here. So I have thumb down, thumb up, and I'm lowering my level. Really his only option is throwing this leg up and over my shoulder, which allows me to transition to my cross scoop passing pretty easily. Anytime we get this thumb up V grip, it's impossible for him to pummel his leg inside my shoulder. Thumb down, he can bring his foot inside the shoulder, right? So go ahead and do it. He pummels the leg inside. If I go thumb up, he goes to do that, it's impossible. He has to throw the leg up and over, which is then going to facilitate the cross scoop passing. So we cut a little bit of an angle. We switch our grips right here. He frames, that leg comes over. He basically is forced to put his leg in that position, go cross scoop, control the ankle. We either go north-south, we knee slice to the other side. He brings his leg in, we hit our pummel right here. We have all our options from this position. So this is a nice little gripping sequence that kind of forces that position. I really do like that position a lot. So, I do like using these grips a lot for passing. So just again, so I get a little bit of an angle, thumb down, thumb up, like this. Lower my level, he goes to bring his legs in. He's pretty much forced the high leg over, which allows that cross scoop position, north-south, switching sides. He brings his knee in, I hit my pummel, and now we're in our passing sequences we just covered. All right, so we briefly touched on this earlier, but we're going to go over a few options in terms of transitioning our outside passing back into pressure passing. So this is one of my favorite things to do. This is something my students have a lot of success with, and I think when you see like really high level competition, like these are the types of transitions you see that result in guard passes at the highest level. So, so one reaction we're going to get, some people will play this way on bottom, where his foot stays very high relative to his knee. So it can be hard. So we talk about like knees to chest. When he kind of plays like this, it can be hard for me to get like good inside hip position and turn his hips the other way and complete my pass. So I start to come to the outside. I feel like his knees are staying very high. It's hard for me to get an angle on him. So when this happens, my right hand is just going to pummel inside. And I'm not going to grab his hip yet. Ultimately, I want to get my hand kind of right inside the crook of where his hip bends right here. But from the angle I'm standing, I'm not going to get that yet. So I just kind of place my hand in the position I know it's going to end up in. And then I got to pummel my legs inside his knees. So I start to come around. Basically, I'm going to windshield wiper inside the leg. So my left hand is going to kind of go inside the knee. I swim this inside, and I windshield wiper my legs in, just like this. And now we're in a stack position. There's a lot of ways I can finish this. I'll just go over one or two options. But once we're in this stack, we're doing a single leg stack. I want to focus on getting his hamstring right on my shoulder so my ear is glued to the inside of his leg. And I want to keep my right hand as shallow as possible. The deeper I reach my right hand, the more he can access my wrist, start to push my wrist up, and then pummel his left knee back to the inside. Or he can start to push my elbow as well, and then the same result will happen. So I'm keeping this as shallow as possible. And once we get inside, my left hand kind of just disappears. Eventually, it's going to cup his hip, and I'm going to use it to help stack his hips up. But I don't want to be holding his leg right here. I mean, obviously, you don't want to get triangle. This definitely should never happen. But I kind of just make my hand disappear, and we focus mostly on this single leg stack. I'm going to drive his knee right to the same side shoulder that I'm passing to, and that exposes his lower back, so my left hand can grab under his hips. And now I can use my knee to stack his hips up right here, and we're in this stack pass. There's a bunch of ways I can finish this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reach, once I have the hips up, I reach my hand to the shoulder, I flare my elbow, and I use my chest to push his legs out of the way, and we move into a nice guard pass right here. So again, I'm starting to come to the outside. I see that leg is high. My left arm pummels inside, right hand comes in, and I just shuffle inside his legs. Depending on what he's doing with his feet, I may be able to just shuffle inside. maybe his butterfly hook is hooking inside my ankle. I have to do like a windshield wiper motion. There's a few ways this could happen, but my main focus is just getting inside my partner's feet like this. I cup the hip, I drive the ear towards the shoulder, I stack his hips up like this. So I'm using my knee and my forearm. I'm using my knee and my forearm to keep his hip stacked. So I don't even need this right hand. He goes to put the hips on the mat here. It's going to be really difficult. I grab the shoulder, I use my chest, I push the knees out of the way, and we move into the stack position. A lot of times when doing this, we can use this to facilitate our cross scoop pass as well. We move into the stack pass. If he does manage to clear my hand and pummel his leg inside, it becomes pretty easy to then switch to a cross scoop. Then we have all the same cross scoop options. So stack pass and cross scoop pass are very closely related, and we can use them in conjunction. So again, we come to the outside, leg inside, and move into the stack pass. If I can stack his hips up, that's great. Most of the time we'll be able to do that, but if he does get that knee inside, I get this cross scoop position, and now we're moving into our cross scoop passing from there. All right, so using the outside passing instead of pressure passing, in this case, we're setting up just a normal stack pass. All right, so we're going to go over using our outside passing to set up more pressure passing. In this case, we're going to do a knee cut. So we have two variations. We have just stepping into a normal split squat or knee cut position. I do have an entire DVD on that split squat position. I like combining the outside passing with that split squat passing. Then we also have an option where we do an opposite side knee cut as well, where we like fully pass the guard. The first option, we're just going to kind of step into our knee cut or split squat position, and then we can set up our tight passing. It's just a good way to get inside. Second option is where we usually actually get pretty deep on a pass and most likely get past the guard. So just generally speaking, if I want to step into a split squat, I don't want to just step into my partner's guard. If I just step my leg inside, I'm kind of allowing Diego to set up his reverse Della Eva, his Della Eva, whatever guards he wants to play. That's generally putting us in more on an even keel. I want to kind of step in where I have an advantage. So when I pass to the outside, his reaction is obviously going to be pushing and starting to bring his knees inside, and that gives me just an opportunity to step into a little bit of a deeper knee cut where I have his bottom leg flattened out, which is ideally what I want. I have my shin parallel with the mat, and my chest and my head are nice and low. Now I'm in a good position where I can actually put pressure on my partner versus just stepping in where my shin makes contact with his hamstring and my shin is perpendicular with the mat. This is not good. This is him more dictating the pace, and he can start to off balance me and control me. And it can be hard if he's playing tight just to step in and then flatten this leg out. So I'm going to threaten going to the outside. When he recovers, I can step into a good knee cut position or a split squat position, and then I'm in a good position to work my passing. This is our first option. This is a relatively simple concept. It's just important to understand this. Second would be going to the opposite side. So a lot of times when passing, people will use what's called a shin frame to square their hips up. So I might start to come around to the side, and Diego will just take his hand and post on my shin. So as I go to try to create an angle, it's very easy for him to square up with me. So instead of fighting my shoulders, he's kind of fighting my legs and then continuously squaring his hips up. This can be annoying to deal with. It's pretty common, but this is a great opportunity to switch to a knee cut. Because that hand is posted on my shin, there's space between his elbow and his ribs, and I can reclaim my underhook. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sliding my back leg or my outside leg. It's going to cut over his shin, and I want to aim for this space inside his hip. So I want to kind of go on a 45-degree angle in this direction. So I have to time this. I can't do this when I'm in front of him, and I can't do it when I'm all the way around the side of him. I'm doing it as his hips square up with me. So as his hips are squaring up, there's a moment where I have the angle to do this right here. So I'm going to start to pass to the outside. He's starting to square up with me. When I see our shins kind of make this T position like this, we go around. See how like his shin is perpendicular to my shin? That's when I'm going to do this right here. So we come around, he starts to recover. Shins are perpendicular. I take my back leg off the mat. My right leg stays where it is, and I throw my hips through, just like this. So my knee leads the way, my right hip drops, and I just slide right over his shin. A lot of times we just end up in a chest-to-chest position and pass the guard right away. So again, I come around, I'm putting pressure, I slide, and we slide all the way through. When I'm doing this, I'm making sure I'm trying to slide high up on his shoulder. So when I do this knee cut, I don't want to go too laterally. So if I go wide like this, Diego's going to be able to make space or cover his knees. So I'm kind of trying to shoot my knee over the shin, over the hip, and up towards his shoulder line when I do this. So look where my right knee is going to land. When I do this, you see how my right knee is high up by the shoulder. That puts us in a good position to secure our guard pass, and we end up in a great spot. So just one more time, we have, as he squares up with us, we just step into our normal split squat, which is an excellent option just to get on the inside and start our passing. We can also, specifically if he shin frames, come across and then knee cut to the opposite side as well. So 2 pressure passing options off of our outside passing.